The medallion burned against Daniela Wagner's palms. She knelt in the snow, knees soaked, fingers trembling, breath coming in ragged clouds of white. The gold was heavy, heavier than it should be, and the symbols etched into its surface pulsed with a light that had no source. A wolf's head, a crown, ancient marks she couldn't read. What is this? What did he leave me? Behind her, the forest went silent. No wind, no bird song, no distant howl of hunting wolves. Just nothing. Daniela's spine stiffened. She had survived 3 days in the wilderness. 3 days of running, hiding, starving. She knew what silence meant. Something was watching. She turned her head, slowly, carefully, and her heart stopped. Shadows. Massive shadows, moving between the trees. Not walking, gliding. Black shapes the size of horses, with eyes like polished onyx that caught no light. One emerged from the tree line, then another, then another. 12 wolves, 12 nightmares given flesh. They moved in perfect formation, surrounding her without a sound, their paws pressing into the snow with the weight of mountains. Daniela couldn't breathe. She had heard the stories. Every wolf had heard the stories. The 12 Onyx Executioners, the king's silent death. They don't hunt, they erase. But why were they here? Why were they circling her? She was nothing, a rejected omega, a ghost with no pack, no name, no future. All she had done was save a dying rogue. The largest wolf stopped before her. Its eyes found the medallion in her hands, and it knelt. 3 days earlier, the snow fell like a funeral shroud. Daniela stood at the edge of the Voss territory, surrounded by wolves who had once been her family, her pack, her life. Now they watched her with eyes like strangers. Alpha Conrad Voss stepped forward. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, silver-streaked, handsome in the way of predators. His voice had once made her feel safe. Now it made her blood freeze. Daniela Wagner. He spoke her name like a curse. You have been judged by the pack and found wanting. Murmurs rippled through the gathered wolves. Some nodded, some looked away. None spoke in her defense. I don't understand. Daniela's voice cracked. What have I done? What crime? Crime? Voss laughed. It was not a kind sound. You exist. That is crime enough. He circled her slowly, boots crunching on frozen ground. You are 24 years old, unmated, unclaimed. No alpha wants you. No beta will touch you. You contribute nothing. You are nothing. I'm a healer. I've helped the sick, the wounded, herbs and poultices. Voss waved his hand dismissively. Old women's tricks. We have real healers now. Trained wolves. Useful wolves. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell the wine on his breath, the contempt in his pores. You are dead weight, Daniela, and dead weight sinks. Please. The word escaped before she could stop it. Please. Alpha, I have nowhere to go. My mother is buried here. My father, your father was weak. He died weak. And you. Voss gripped her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. You are his daughter in every way. He released her, stepped back. Remove her. Hands grabbed Daniela's arms. Rough, cruel. They dragged her toward the boundary stones, the ancient markers that separated pack territory from the wilderness beyond. She fought, screamed, begged. No one listened. They threw her past the stones like garbage. She landed face first in the snow, the cold biting into her skin, stealing the air from her lungs. You are exiled. Voss's voice echoed from behind her. You are no longer Voss, no longer pack, no longer anything. Daniela pushed herself up, snow clinging to her hair, her clothes, her eyelashes. If you return, Voss continued, you will be killed on sight. If you seek shelter from any pack in our alliance, they will be told of your inadequacy. She turned to look at him. At the wolves gathered behind him, at the life she was losing. Die in the snow like the weak thing you are. The pack turned their backs. One by one, they walked away. And Daniela Wagner knelt in the frozen wilderness, watching her entire world disappear into the storm. She had nothing. No food, no shelter, no future. Just a small pouch of dried herbs tucked into her belt, the only thing they hadn't thought to take. The snow kept falling. The cold kept biting. And somewhere in the white silence, a wolf began to howl. Not a pack howl, not a hunting call, a death cry. Daniela rose on shaking legs and walked toward the sound. She found him in a ravine, half buried in crimson snow. At first, Daniela thought he was dead. The body lay twisted at the bottom of a shallow gully, limbs bent at wrong angles, fur matted with blood and filth. The smell hit her before she reached him. Rot, infection, the sweet, sick stench of flesh giving up. Leave him. He's gone. But then his chest moved. A shallow rise. A shuddering fall. The barest whisper of life clinging to a ruined shell. Daniela slid down the embankment, snow cascading around her. Up close, he was worse than she'd imagined. Mangy, skeletal, more corpse than wolf. His fur, what remained of it, was patchy and gray, clinging to visible ribs like wet cloth on bone. Claw marks raked across his flank, deep gouges that wept yellow pus. His muzzle was crusted with dried blood. His eyes were closed, sunken into a skull that seemed too large for the wasted body beneath it. He had been attacked, savaged, left for dead, just like me. Daniela knelt beside him. Her hands hovered over his wounds, trembling, not from cold, but from the impossibility of what she was considering. He's a rogue, a stranger, probably dangerous, and you're a rejected Omega with nothing to lose. She reached for her herb pouch. The dried leaves inside were precious: moonwort, silver sage, blood moss. Remedies her mother had taught her before the sickness took her. Remedies that had kept the Voss pack healthy for years. Remedies they had deemed old women's tricks. Daniela crushed the herbs between her palms, mixing them with snow until they formed a thick paste. She packed it into the rogue's wounds, one by one, feeling the heat of infection beneath her fingers. He whimpered, a broken sound, almost human. Shh. She didn't know why she spoke. He couldn't hear her. I've got you. I've got you. Night fell fast in the wilderness. The temperature plummeted. Daniela's breath turned to ice crystals before her face. She had no fire, no shelter, no food except a single strip of dried venison she'd been saving for emergencies. She looked at the meat, looked at the dying wolf. You need that to survive. So does he. She tore the venison into small pieces, pushed them between his cracked lips, massaged his throat until he swallowed. Then she lay down beside him, her body pressed against his ruined fur, sharing what little warmth she had. The cold gnawed at her back while the rogue's fading heat warmed her front. She wrapped her arms around him, this stranger, this dying thing, and held on. Don't you dare die, she whispered into his matted fur. I didn't waste my last meal on a corpse. Hours passed. The snow kept falling. Daniela drifted in and out of consciousness, her body slowly freezing, her arms never loosening. And then, near dawn, the rogue stirred. His eyes opened. Daniela's breath caught. They weren't the dull, feral eyes of a dying wolf. They were gold, bright, burning gold, ancient and aware, and filled with something that made her soul tremble. Those eyes found hers, and the mangy rogue smiled. Daniela woke to silence. The kind of silence that only exists after a storm. Heavy, crystalline, absolute. Sunlight pierced through the clouds, turning the snow into a field of shattered diamonds. She was alone. Her arms were empty. The warmth that had pressed against her through the night was gone. The rogue, the dying wolf she had fed, healed, held, had vanished. Did I dream him? No. The blood was still there, staining the snow in dark patches. The impression of his body remained, a shallow grave of crushed ice and matted fur. But he was gone. Daniela sat up slowly, her muscles screaming from a night spent on frozen ground. Her fingers were numb. Her lips were cracked. Every breath felt like swallowing glass. He left. He survived, and he left. She should have been angry. She had given him her last food, her last medicine, her body heat when she had none to spare, and he had abandoned her without a word. What did you expect? Gratitude? From a rogue? Daniela pushed herself to her feet, swaying. She needed to move, needed to find shelter, find water, find... Something glinted in the snow. She froze. There, in the exact spot where the rogue's head had rested, lay an object. Gold. Circular. Catching the morning light like a fallen piece of the sun. Daniela approached it slowly, knelt, reached out with trembling fingers. A medallion. Heavy. Impossibly heavy. The gold was warm against her frozen palm, warm as if it had been sitting by a fire, not buried in snow. A chain trailed from it, thick links of metal that clinked softly as she lifted it. The surface was engraved. A wolf's head dominated the center. Not a common wolf, but something regal, something ancient. Its eyes were set with tiny black stones that seemed to absorb light. A crown rested above its ears, formed of intricate knotwork that hurt to look at too long. Around the edges, symbols spiraled, runes or letters in a language Daniela had never seen. They pulsed faintly, a soft, golden glow that matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. What is this? She turned it over. The back was smooth except for a single phrase etched in the old tongue. Blood given, blood owed, until death or repayment. Daniela's hands trembled. She didn't understand the words, didn't recognize the symbols. But something deep in her bones, something primal, something wolf, knew this object was important, not just valuable, sacred. The rogue had left it for her, deliberately. A payment, perhaps, for saving his life, or a message she wasn't equipped to read. Either way, it changed everything. Gold like this could buy food, shelter, safe passage to the southern territories where no one knew her name. Gold like this could mean survival. Daniela hung the medallion around her neck. It settled against her chest, warm and heavy, pulsing with that strange inner light. For the first time in 3 days, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. She didn't know that hope would nearly get her killed. She didn't know that the medallion was already calling its master home. She didn't know anything at all. Word traveled fast in the wild. Daniela learned this the hard way. She had been walking for half a day when she heard them. Distant howls cutting through the frozen air. Not random, not territorial, hunting calls. Her blood went cold. She knew those voices, the deep baritone of Conrad Voss, the sharp yips of his enforcers, the synchronized rhythm of a pack on the hunt. They're coming for me. But why? She had obeyed. She had left. She had done everything they demanded. Then her hand found the medallion at her chest. The gold. Someone had seen her. Someone had talked. And Conrad Voss, greedy, cruel, predictable Conrad Voss, had decided that a rejected Omega had no right to such treasure. Daniela ran. Her legs screamed. Her lungs burned. 3 days of starvation and cold had stripped her of strength, but fear was its own fuel. She crashed through snowdrifts, scrambled over frozen streams, tore through brambles that sliced her skin like razors. It wasn't enough. They were faster. They were always faster. The howls grew closer, splitting, flanking, herding her like prey toward a destination she couldn't see. The cliff. She burst through the tree line and skidded to a halt. The ground ended 20 feet ahead, a sheer drop into a frozen river far below. Jagged rocks jutted from the ice like broken teeth. No escape. Daniela spun. 5 wolves emerged from the forest. They shifted as they walked, bones cracking, flesh reshaping, until 5 men stood before her in the snow, naked, steaming, smiling. Conrad Voss led them. "Little Daniela," his voice was honey poured over poison. "Did you really think you could run?" "I didn't steal anything." Her voice shook. "The medallion was a gift." "A gift?" Voss laughed. "From whom? The corpse you robbed in the ravine?" "He wasn't dead. I saved him. He left it for me. Convenient story." Voss stepped closer. His enforcers fanned out, cutting off any angle of retreat. "A rejected Omega finds a dying rogue, nurses him back to health, and receives a king's ransom in gold? Do you think I'm stupid?" "I think you're a thief." The words escaped before Daniela could stop them. Voss's smile vanished. "Careful, little wolf." His voice dropped to something dangerous. "You're already dead. The only question is how much you suffer first." He extended his hand. "Give me the medallion, and I'll make it quick. A single bite. You won't feel a thing." Daniela's fingers closed around the gold at her chest. Blood given. Blood owed. She didn't know what it meant. Didn't know why the words surfaced now, rising from some deep place she couldn't name. But she knew, with absolute certainty, that she would die before she surrendered it. "No," Voss sighed. "Wrong answer." He nodded to his enforcers. They began to shift, bones cracking, jaws extending, eyes turning feral. Daniela backed toward the cliff's edge. One more step, and she would fall. One more second, and they would tear her apart. "This is how I die." But then, Voss froze. His enforcers froze. Something moved in the darkness behind them. Something massive. Voss's nostril flared. "What?" He didn't finish. One of his enforcers turned toward the tree line. Then another. Their half-shifted bodies trembled, not from cold, but from something far more primal. Fear. Daniela saw it too. Shadows, moving between the trees, not walking, not running, gliding, like oil across water, like nightmares given form. They made no sound. That was the worst part. No growls, no snarls, no warning of any kind. Just massive black shapes circling through the darkness, their eyes catching no light, their paws leaving no prints. "Wolves," one of the enforcers whispered. "Wolves in the trees." "I can see that," Voss snapped, but his voice had changed. The arrogance was cracking. "How many?" Silence. Then a shape emerged from the shadows. A wolf. Black as void. Larger than any wolf Daniela had ever seen. Shoulder height reaching her chest. Muscles coiled beneath fur that seemed to swallow light itself. It stopped at the edge of the tree line and stared at Conrad Voss with eyes like polished onyx. "That's..." One of the enforcers stumbled backward. "That's not possible. They're supposed to be legends." Another shape emerged, then another, then another. 12 wolves. 12 massive, silent, impossible wolves, surrounding them all. Voss's face went pale. The 12 Onyx Executioners, he breathed. Daniela's heart stopped. She had heard the stories. Every wolf had heard the stories. The king's personal guard. His silent death. Wolves who didn't hunt, who erased. But the king had been missing for years, presumed dead, forgotten. So why were his executioners here? The largest wolf's eyes shifted, away from Voss, toward Daniela, toward the medallion glowing at her chest. No one moved. The clearing had become a frozen tableau. 5 Voss wolves on one side, a rejected Omega on the other, and 12 impossible nightmares circling them all like sharks scenting blood. Conrad Voss found his voice first. "Hold formation." His words came out cracked. "Wrong. They're just wolves, big wolves. We can—" Alpha. One of his enforcers, a thick-necked brute named Garrick, was shaking, actually shaking. "Alpha, those are the executioners, the king's executioners. We need to run." "Run where?" Voss snarled. "They've already surrounded us." He was right. Daniela could see it now. The black shapes had completed their circle. 12 wolves, 12 shadows. No gaps, no escape routes, just a closing noose of silent death. "You!" Voss pointed at Garrick. "Go into the tree line. See how many we're actually dealing with." Garrick's face went white. "Alpha, that's an order." For a long moment, Garrick didn't move. Then his shoulders slumped, his head dropped, and he walked toward the darkness between the trees. Daniela watched him go. The shadows swallowed him whole. One step he was there, a solid shape against the snow. The next, he was simply gone. No cry, no struggle, no sound of impact or violence, just silence. "Garrick?" Voss's voice pitched higher. "Garrick, report!" Nothing. The forest breathed. The shadows shifted. "Martin!" Voss grabbed his second enforcer. Younger, leaner, eyes already wild with terror. "Go! Find him!" No, I won't!" Voss backhanded him. "Go!" Martin stumbled toward the tree line. His legs barely held him. His breath came in short, panicked gasps that fogged the air like smoke. He reached the first tree. The shadows moved. Martin was there. Then he wasn't. No scream, no final word. Just a man erased from existence like a smudge wiped from glass. The remaining 3 enforcers broke. "I'm not dying here!" The youngest, barely more than a boy, turned and ran toward the cliff's edge. Maybe he thought he could jump. Maybe he thought the fall was better than what waited in the dark. He made it 4 steps. A black shape materialized from nothing. Massive, silent, moving faster than anything that size should move. It didn't attack. Didn't bite. It simply intercepted the running wolf and carried him into the shadows with the casual ease of a parent lifting a child. Gone. The 4th enforcer tried to shift. His bones began to crack. His jaw began to extend. A shadow passed over him. When it cleared, he was no longer there. Daniela pressed her back against empty air. The cliff yawned behind her. Death waited before her. And Conrad Voss stood alone in the clearing, surrounded by nothing but snow and silence and the ghosts of wolves who had followed him to oblivion. "What is this?" Voss's voice had lost all authority, all power. He sounded like what he truly was, a bully confronted by something he couldn't intimidate. "What do you want?" The executioners didn't answer. They simply waited. 12 shadows, 12 nightmares. Watching, the largest wolf stepped forward. Daniela had thought she understood fear. 3 days of exile had taught her cold, hunger, desperation. Conrad Voss had taught her cruelty and powerlessness. This was different. This was annihilation wearing fur. The executioner moved without sound. Its paws, each one larger than Daniela's head, pressed into the snow without leaving prints, as if the earth itself refused to acknowledge its presence. Its fur was so black, it seemed to drink the morning light, creating a wolf-shaped void in the fabric of reality. And its eyes, God, its eyes, polished onyx, depthless, ancient. They held no malice, no hunger, no emotion of any kind. They were the eyes of something that had moved beyond such mortal concerns, the eyes of an apex predator that had forgotten what fear felt like. It stopped 10 feet from Conrad Voss. Voss stumbled backward, his legs tangled. He fell, the mighty alpha, the cruel tyrant, the wolf who had cast Daniela into the snow to die, fell on his backside like a frightened pup. "Please." The word came out broken. "Please, I didn't know." The executioner tilted its massive head, studying him, judging him. Then, impossibly, it dismissed him. The great wolf turned away from Conrad Voss as if he were furniture, beneath notice, unworthy of acknowledgement, and it walked toward Daniela. "No, no, no, no!" She couldn't run, couldn't move. Her body had locked in place, every muscle frozen, every instinct screaming in frequencies she couldn't process. The executioner stopped before her, close enough that she could smell it. Not the musk of wolf, but something older. Stone and starlight and the dust of ancient places. Its eyes found the medallion. The gold pulsed brighter, warmer. The symbols around its edge began to glow with genuine light, casting strange patterns across the snow. The executioner's gaze lifted to Daniela's face. She waited for death. Instead, she heard a sound she would remember for the rest of her life. The creak of joints, the shift of massive weight, the soft whump of a body hitting snow. The executioner had lowered itself, not crouching to attack, kneeling, its great head bowed until its muzzle nearly touched the ground. Its eyes, those ancient, depthless eyes, closed in what could only be described as reverence. Behind it, the other 11 wolves moved. One by one, they emerged from the shadows. One by one, they approached. One by one, they stopped behind their leader and performed the same impossible gesture. 12 wolves, 12 nightmares, kneeling before a rejected Omega in blood-stained clothes. Daniela couldn't breathe. "What?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing? I'm no one. I'm nothing." The lead executioner's eyes opened, and in those depthless black pools, Daniela saw something that shattered everything she thought she knew. Recognition. The silence was absolute. 12 Onyx Executioners, the most feared warriors in wolf history, the king's personal death squad, the monsters that parents invoked to frighten disobedient pups, knelt in the snow before Daniela Wagner, a rejected Omega, a ghost, a nothing. Behind them, Conrad Voss made a sound. It started as a laugh, high, hysterical, wrong, and dissolved into something closer to a sob. "This is insane!" He was shaking his head, back and forth, back and forth. "This is impossible. You're a failed healer. You're garbage. I threw you away." None of the executioners acknowledged him. "Look at me!" Voss screamed. "I am an alpha. I control 12 territories. I have 3,000 wolves under my command." Silence. The executioners remained motionless, heads bowed, bodies pressed to the snow. Every line of their impossible forms radiating a submission that Voss had never received from anyone. And they offered it to the woman he had cast out to die. Something broke behind Voss's eyes. Daniela saw it happen. Watched the moment when his reality, The reality where he was powerful and important and feared collided with the truth kneeling before her. He had called her nothing. The king's executioners called her something else entirely. The medallion! Voss's voice had changed, smaller now, desperate. It's the medallion. They want the gold, that's all. Give it to them. Daniela, give it to them, and this all goes away. Daniela's hand found the metal at her chest. It was burning now, not painfully, the way a hearth burns on a winter night. Warm, welcoming, alive. I don't understand, she whispered. I don't understand any of this. The lead executioner raised its head. For a moment, their eyes met, the broken Omega and the nightmare wolf, and Daniela felt something pass between them. Not words, something deeper. Patience. Wait, he is coming. Then the executioner's gaze shifted, past Daniela, past the cliff, into the darkness of the forest on the far side of the clearing. The other 11 heads rose in unison. 12 wolves, 12 statues, all facing the same direction, all waiting. Daniela turned. At first, she saw nothing, just shadows and snow and the skeletal fingers of winter trees. Then the shadows moved. No, one shadow moved, separated from the darkness like a piece of night deciding to take a walk. It moved slowly, deliberately, each step carrying the weight of absolute certainty. A figure emerged from the tree line, tall, broad, walking upright on 2 legs, a man, but the word felt insufficient, like calling the ocean water or the sun bright, technically accurate, spiritually bankrupt. He wore black boots, black trousers, black coat that hung open despite the freezing cold. His chest was bare beneath it, revealing a map of scars that crossed his torso like the streets of some violent city. His hair was dark and wild. His jaw was carved from granite. His shoulders were broad enough to carry mountains, and his eyes, gold, burning, ancient gold. Daniela's heart stopped. She knew those eyes. She had seen them open in the gray light of dawn, seen them find hers across a body she had held through the frozen night, seen them smile before the rogue vanished into the morning mist. The dying wolf she had saved. He was standing before her, and he was magnificent. He walked through his kneeling executioners like a god passing through worshippers. They didn't rise, didn't lift their heads. They remained pressed to the snow, 12 nightmares rendered humble by the presence of something greater. Leon Seiler. The name surfaced from somewhere deep in Daniela's memory. Old stories, fireside whispers. The Wolf King who had vanished 7 years ago, presumed dead, mourned by none, and missed by all. He wasn't dead. He was standing 5 feet away, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with his presence. You. His voice was low, calm, the voice of a man who had never needed to raise it. You're shaking. Daniela realized he was right. Her entire body trembled, not from cold this time, but from something far more primal. You were dying, she managed. You were... I held you. I fed you. You did. You were mangy. Something flickered across his face. It might have been amusement. A disguise. One that serves its purpose. He stopped before her, close enough that she could see the scars in detail. They weren't the marks of a victim. They were battle honors, trophies carved into flesh. Each one told a story of violence survived, of enemies destroyed, of a king who had bled for his throne and emerged harder for the bleeding. Why? Daniela's voice cracked. Why pretend to be a rogue? Why let me? I test them. Leon's golden eyes held hers. The wolves of this realm. I walk among them in ruin, in weakness, in need. I see who they truly are when they believe no one is watching. His gaze shifted to Conrad Voss, still frozen, still trembling, still trying to process a world that no longer made sense. Most fail, Leon continued. They walk past, they spit, they steal what little the dying have left. His attention returned to Daniela. You did not. I couldn't just leave you. You could have. You should have. You had nothing. You were starving, freezing, hunted, and you gave a dying stranger your last food, your medicine, your warmth. He reached out. Daniela flinched, but his hand moved past her. His fingers found the medallion at her chest, lifting it gently until it caught the light. Do you know what this is? Gold, a wolf's head, a crown, the king's life debt. His voice dropped. It has not been given in 300 years. The last wolf to receive it became the founder of the Northern Dynasty. The wolf before that ended a civil war. Daniela's mind reeled. I don't understand. The wolf who holds this medallion, Leon said slowly, holds my life, my throne, my kingdom. They are owed a debt that cannot be measured and must be repaid in full. He released the medallion. It fell back against her chest, warm, heavy, binding. You saved me, Daniela Wagner. Leon's golden eyes burned into hers. Now I am yours, until the debt is paid, until my dying breath. The words hung in the frozen air. I am yours. Daniela couldn't process them, couldn't fit them into any framework her mind possessed. She was a rejected Omega, a failed healer, a woman who had been thrown into the snow to die by the very Alpha now trembling 20 feet away. And the Wolf King had just pledged himself to her. This is wrong! Voss's voice shattered the silence. It was high now, desperate, the voice of a man watching his entire reality crumble. This is some kind of trick, some manipulation. Leon didn't look at him. You're still here, the king observed mildly. Interesting. She's nothing, Voss screamed. She's defective, worthless. I cast her out because she couldn't even... You cast her out. Leon's voice didn't change, didn't rise. But something in the air shifted, a pressure, a weight, a sense of terrible attention finally turning toward the alpha of the Voss pack. You threw her into the wilderness with nothing. No food, no shelter, no protection. She was dead weight, a burden on the pack. She was a healer. Leon turned, slowly. The movement had the lazy grace of a predator that knew its prey couldn't escape. A healer who, 3 days later, found a dying wolf in the snow. A wolf that any sensible person would have left to rot. He began to walk toward Voss. The alpha stumbled backward. His legs hit a rock. He fell again, sprawling in the snow, scrambling like a crab, eyes wild with terror. She gave that dying wolf her last food, Leon continued. Her last medicine, her body heat through a frozen night. She held a stranger in her arms and refused to let him die. He stopped, stood over Voss like a monument to everything the Alpha would never be. The wolf you threw away, Leon said softly, showed more honor in one night than you have shown in your entire life. Please? Voss was crying now. Actually crying, tears freezing on his cheeks, snot running from his nose. Please, Your Majesty, I didn't know. I couldn't have known. No, you couldn't. Leon crouched, brought his face close to Voss's. Because you never looked. You never saw her. She was invisible to you. Just another Omega to use and discard. His hand shot out, grabbed Voss by the throat, lifted him off the ground with one arm, holding him suspended like a rabbit in a snare. But I see her. Voss choked, gagged, His feet kicked uselessly at the air. "I see her," Leon repeated, "because she saw me, when I was broken, when I was ruined, when I was everything you called her. Mangy, worthless, better off dead." He leaned closer. "She is the holder of the king's life debt. She is under my protection. My sword, my throne." His golden eyes blazed. "And anyone who threatens that wolf—" He released Voss. The alpha crumpled to the snow, gasping, sobbing, utterly destroyed. Leon straightened, turned, found Daniela's eyes across the clearing. "Threatens me." Conrad Voss lay in the snow like a broken thing, the alpha of 12 territories, commander of 3,000 wolves, the man who had ruled through fear and cruelty for 2 decades, weeping in the dirt before a woman he had called worthless. Leon circled him slowly. The 12 Onyx Executioners had risen from their kneel, forming a perfect ring around the clearing. They didn't move, didn't breathe, it seemed. They simply watched, 12 monuments to violence, bearing witness to a trial that needed no court. "Do you know why I disappeared, Voss?" The alpha flinched at the sound of his name. He tried to rise, but his legs wouldn't hold him. He remained on his knees, snow soaking through his clothes, dignity bleeding out with every passing second. "Your Majesty, please—" "7 years ago," Leon continued as if Voss hadn't spoken. "I grew tired of my throne, tired of wolves who bowed to my face and plotted behind my back, tired of alphas who ruled through terror rather than honor." He stopped, looked down at Voss with something that might have been disappointment. "I wanted to know if the realm was worth saving, if there were wolves who still remembered what we were supposed to be." "I am loyal," Voss gasped. "I have always been loyal to the crown." "You are loyal to power." Leon's voice cut like a blade. "You knelt to me because I could destroy you. You rejected Daniela because she couldn't stop you. That isn't loyalty. That's cowardice wearing a crown." Voss's face crumpled. "I walked through your territory 3 days ago," Leon said. "Wounded, starving, dying. Your patrols found me twice. Do you know what they did?" Silence. "They laughed." Leon's golden eyes blazed. "They kicked snow in my face and told me to crawl somewhere else to die. Your wolves, your training, your example." "I didn't know." "You didn't care." Leon crouched again, bringing his face level with Voss's. "And when I finally collapsed, when I lay in the snow waiting for death, do you know who found me?" His gaze shifted to Daniela. She stood frozen at the cliff's edge, the medallion burning against her chest, watching a king dismantle an alpha with nothing but words. "The woman you threw away." Leon's voice softened. Not with mercy, with something closer to wonder. "The dead weight, the nothing. She gave everything she had to save a stranger, while your wolves laughed and walked away." He stood. "That is the difference between you, Conrad Voss. She had nothing and gave everything. You have everything and give nothing." The executioners shifted, a subtle movement. 12 massive bodies adjusting their weight. 12 sets of onyx eyes focusing with renewed intensity. Waiting. "The old laws are clear," Leon said. "You hunted the holder of the king's life debt. You threatened her life. You intended to steal the royal medallion for yourself." Voss began to shake. "The punishment for such crimes is death." "No." The word came out as a whimper. "No, please." "But the choice," Leon continued, "is not mine to make." He turned to Daniela. "It's hers." Daniela's blood turned to ice. "What?" "The debt is yours." Leon's golden eyes held hers across the clearing. "He wronged you long before he wronged me, cast you out, hunted you, would have—" Killed you for gold he had no right to claim. He gestured toward the trembling Alpha. His life is in your hands. Speak the word, and the executioners will end him, quickly, cleanly, a mercy he does not deserve, but that I will grant at your command. Daniela stared at Conrad Voss. 3 days ago, this man had stood over her with contempt dripping from every word, had called her nothing, garbage, dead weight, had thrown her into the wilderness to die slowly of cold and starvation. Now he knelt in the snow, tears freezing on his cheeks, utterly broken. She should want him dead. Some part of her did. The part that had cried itself to sleep in the frozen dark. The part that had felt her mother's grave grow distant with every step into exile. The part that had whispered, "Why me? Why me? Why me?" until the words lost all meaning. That part wanted blood. But another part, older, deeper, the part her mother had nurtured with herb lore and healing songs, remembered something else. Cruelty is easy, my love. Any wolf can destroy. It takes strength to build. It takes courage to show mercy. Daniela, Leon's voice was patient, waiting. What is your judgment? She looked at Voss, really looked at him. The Alpha was destroyed. Not physically, the executioners hadn't touched him, but everything he had built his identity upon had crumbled to dust. His power meant nothing here. His cruelty had been turned against him. His entire world view. That strength meant domination, that weakness deserved punishment, had been shattered by a rejected Omega holding more authority than he had ever possessed. What would killing him accomplish? A moment of satisfaction, a brief taste of revenge, and then she would be just like him. I don't want his death. The words came out steady, stronger than she expected. Leon's eyes narrowed, not with anger, with something closer to curiosity. Then what do you want? Daniela stepped forward. 1 step, 2, until she stood over Conrad Voss, looking down at the man who had tried to erase her from existence. He looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. Please, he whispered. Please, I'll do anything. I know you will. Her voice was calm, quiet, the voice of a woman who had found something beyond rage. But I don't want your service. I don't want your territory. I don't want your blood on the snow. She crouched, brought her face close to his. I want something worse. Voss's breath caught. I want you to live. The clearing went still. Even the executioners seemed to pause. 12 statues of black fur and ancient eyes, watching something none of them had expected. Live? Voss's voice cracked. You're letting me live? I'm making you live. Daniela didn't blink. I want you to walk back to your pack. I want you to stand before every wolf who watched you throw me away, and I want you to tell them what happened here. She rose to her feet. Tell them that the nothing you rejected saved the Wolf King's life. Tell them that the dead weight holds the king's life debt. Tell them that you hunted me for gold, and when you cornered me at this cliff. Her voice hardened. The 12 Onyx Executioners knelt at my feet while you wept in the snow. Voss's face went white. I want every wolf in this realm to know the truth. Daniela continued. Not that you were defeated. Anyone can be defeated. I want them to know you were spared, that you only breathe because the woman you called worthless decided your life wasn't worth taking. She let the words sink in. You will live with that knowledge, Conrad Voss. Every morning when you wake, every night when you sleep, every time one of your wolves looks at you and remembers that you begged for mercy from a rejected Omega and received it. Voss began to shake, not with cold, not with fear, with something far worse. Shame. That is my judgment. Daniela said. That is my punishment. A quick death would have been a kindness. You don't deserve kindness. She turned her back on him. The ultimate dismissal. The final insult. Behind her, Conrad Voss made a sound. Something between a sob and a scream. The noise of a man whose pride had been surgically removed and left bleeding in the snow. Leon watched her approach with an expression she couldn't read. You could have demanded his blood, he said quietly. His territory, his pack, everything he owns. I know. Instead, you chose mercy. I chose justice. Daniela met his golden eyes. Death is easy. Death is quick. Death would have let him escape. She glanced back at the broken Alpha. Now he has to live with what he is, what he did, what he almost destroyed. Something shifted in Leon's ancient gaze. Something warm. Your mother, he said slowly. She was a healer? Yes. She taught you well. He paused. Cruelty would have diminished you. Revenge would have made you his equal. But this, he shook his head. This was the judgment of a queen. Daniela's breath caught. I'm not... No. Leon's lips curved into something that was almost a smile. Not yet. The wind shifted. It had been bitter all morning, cutting through clothes, stealing warmth, reminding every living thing that winter was a killer wearing white. But now, as the sun climbed higher and the clouds began to part, something changed. The cold softened. The light grew golden, and for the first time in 3 days, Daniela felt warm. The king's life debt is satisfied, Leon's voice carried across the clearing. Formal now, the voice of a ruler addressing his court, even if that court consisted of 12 silent wolves and 1 shattered alpha. You saved my life. I have protected yours. By the old laws, we are even. Daniela nodded slowly. Then I'm free to go? You are always free. Leon's eyes held hers. But before you walk away, I would ask you to consider something. He stepped closer, not threatening, not demanding, simply present, a mountain of a man, scarred and ancient and radiating power, like heat from a forge. I have ruled alone for 34 years, he said. I have had advisors, generals, allies of convenience, but I have never found a wolf who saw me clearly, who saw past the crown and the power and the fear. His voice softened. Until 3 nights ago, when a dying rogue opened his eyes and found a woman holding him through the cold. Daniela's heart hammered against her ribs. You didn't save me because of what I could give you. Leon continued. You didn't ask for reward. You simply saw a creature in need and refused to let it die, even when saving me meant losing your last chance to save yourself. He extended his hand, palm up, open, waiting. I don't offer you the king's life debt, Daniela Wagner. That account is closed. His golden eyes blazed. I offer you something else, a place at my side, not as a servant, not as a subject, not as a debt repaid or a favor returned. The medallion pulsed against her chest. I offer you a partnership, a throne, a kingdom that has needed someone like you for far too long. Daniela stared at his hand. 3 days ago, she had been no one, rejected, exiled, left to die in the snow like the worthless thing her alpha had called her. Now a king stood before her, offering her everything. Why? The word escaped before she could stop it. Why me? I'm not royalty. I'm not powerful. I'm just a healer who gave everything to save a stranger. Leon's voice was steady, certain. A woman who was offered revenge and chose mercy. A wolf who was called nothing by fools who couldn't see what stood before them. He smiled. It transformed his face. The scars softened. The ancient weight lifted. For a moment, He wasn't the Wolf King or the nightmare in the dark. He was just a man who had finally found something worth fighting for. You are extraordinary, Daniela Wagner. You simply haven't realized it yet. He waited. The wind whispered. The executioners watched, and Daniela made her choice. She took his hand. Leon's fingers closed around hers. Warm, calloused, impossibly gentle for something so powerful. He didn't pull her, didn't rush. He simply held her hand like it was the most precious thing he had ever touched. Are you certain? His voice was soft, private. A question meant only for her. Daniela looked back, at the cliff where she had almost died, at the snow that had nearly been her grave, at Conrad Voss, still crumpled on the ground, a monument to cruelty brought low by its own reflection. Then she looked forward, at the king who had found her in the wilderness, at the executioners who had knelt at her feet, at a future she couldn't have imagined 3 days ago. Yes, she said, I'm certain. Leon's smile widened. He turned, still holding her hand, and began to walk toward the tree line. The 12 Onyx Executioners rose as one, a fluid movement, 12 nightmares becoming 12 guardians in the space of a heartbeat. They fell into formation around Daniela, not surrounding her, escorting her. 6 on each side, massive black shapes moving through the snow like shadows come to life. Their eyes, those depthless onyx pools, watched the forest for threats, watched the sky for danger, watched everything except her. Because she was no longer prey, she was something to protect. Where are we going? Daniela asked as they entered the forest. Home. Leon's voice carried a weight of meaning that made her chest ache. My fortress lies 3 days north. You'll have chambers of your own. Servants if you want them. Healers who will be honored to learn what you know. He glanced at her. And time. To decide what you truly want. I will not rush you, Daniela. I will not pressure you. The offer stands. Today, tomorrow, a year from now. You are free to choose. Daniela's throat tightened. No one had ever offered her freedom before. Not real freedom, the kind without conditions, without expectations, without hidden costs. Thank you, she whispered. They walked in silence, for a while. The snow crunched beneath their feet. The sun climbed higher, turning the forest into a cathedral of white and gold. Then the lead executioner stopped. The others halted with him. 12 statues in the snow, heads raised, muzzles pointed toward the sky. What are they? Daniela began. The howls started low, deep, resonant, a sound that seemed to come from the earth itself, rising through the trees, shaking snow from branches, filling the world with a single, impossible note. Then another voice joined, and another, and another. 12 wolves, 12 voices, 12 howls weaving together into something that transcended sound, a royal salute, a declaration, a promise. We have found her. We will guard her. She is ours. Daniela stood in the center of it all, the Wolf King's hand warm in hers, the medallion pulsing against her heart, and 12 nightmares singing her name to the sky. She was no longer rejected, no longer nothing. She was the woman who saved the king. And the wolves of the realm would never forget it.